Brown bats is it's the nickname for the Birmingham and Black Country Bat Group, and there's a network of bat groups all across the country, usually one for each county, sometimes more than one. And we basically just do a lot of awareness raising and conservation for bats in our local area.
And specifically, what does your job involve? Because I know you go on a lot of bat walks as well.
Yep, that's right. Well, we're all volunteers, so most of us have normal day jobs, and then luckily bats come out at night when none of us are at work. So we do a lot of bat walks and we do a lot of bat surveys. A lot of times we go to festivals or fairs or events and have a stall there to try and talk to people about bats and try and dispel a few myths and trying to get them interested in bat conservation.
And talking about bat conservation now, so you find these bats and what happens next?
Well, it happens in several ways. We're either doing bat conservation in the sense that we're raising people's awareness because we're taking them out and showing them that that these creatures are out there, and they don't often get to see them because it's in the nighttime. And then there's also the fact that we're doing surveys, because you can't really do conservation for a species unless you know what's there and where it's living and what its habitat requirements are. So we find all that stuff out. And we make sure that all of our records, when we go out on a survey, what we record goes to our local record centre as well. And also we do bat care, so just in the same way, you see wildlife rescue programs, or we have a local hedgehog rescue centre as well. But we just basically look after bats.
And because you've got a job in the daytime and you do this in the evening as well, you probably don't sleep.
Well, it's a lot busier in the summer because bats are hibernating in the winter.
Exactly.
So when it comes to bat care and stuff, you don't tend to get as many in the winter. This time of year is kind of busy. This is the time of year when there are lots of, not baby bats, say teenage bats starting to explore, and they're not particularly great at flying yet, so they get grounded quite easily. And so like today I've had 5 different bat calls today. It's August for you.
And where in Birmingham do you go on these bat walks and find these bats?
Well, basically, all throughout Birmingham and the Black Country, really. And the other thing that we do is we will go and support other people doing bat walks. So if there are ranger services doing bat walks, we have a calendar of events on our website so people can go on and see where they can go in their local area. And
how many volunteers are involved in Bat Brum?
Well, we have, I guess we have a core group of about 10 to 12 really active core members. But at the moment, we're doing a really big survey project called the Bat Atlas, or Batless as we call it. And we've got a good few dozen people out involved in surveying their local areas. They each adopt a square on the map to survey. And we have about 15 to 20 bat carers and trainees.
Perfect.
Well, I have, I've got one little bat at home that she's not very well at all, so she's having a bit of quiet time at the moment. But most of the bats that we've got this time of year are in what we have a flight cage, which is basically like an aviary where they practice flying, mostly full of this year's orphans. So they've all been hand-reared, and there's 22 of them.
22.
And they are getting ready to be released.
And talk us through the diet of a bat now. I mean, what do you feed them?
Yeah, when they're very young, because they're mammals, when they're babies they drink milk. So if they're orphans, like a lot of the ones we have to feed them puppy milk, like what you give to an orphan puppy, basically, like a powder that you mix up. And then as they get older, we try and replicate their natural diet. All British bats eat insects, and so we give them mealworms, which are the larvae of beetles. Which can be a bit messy and a bit icky, but the bats love them. So, and that's what they're eating now in the flight cage. We're getting through 450 mealworms a day.
Wow! And this is a very unique profession. So, I mean, tell me, why did you decide to go into it?
Well, I think I always wanted to do conservation, so I ended up, I do conservation in my normal day job. But I think that generally just a love of general wildlife is why most people get into it. And bats are something that, you almost have to see one up close before you actually realise how amazing they are. And I think most people, once they see them, they're kind of hooked.
Because normally people tend to be quite scared of bats, don't they?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think they're kind of leathery and like scaly or something. They don't realise they're actually small, cute, furry mammals, and they're fascinating little creatures. They're very intelligent and very gregarious, so they're very social with each other.
And how many bats have you had at your house at one time?
The most I've had in my living room at any one time is 22.
22. And do they make a particular noise? Are they quite noisy in the house, or?
When they tend to, they'll squabble a little bit and sort of chatter with each other. But by and large, if they're say flying around, then you can't hear them because they echolocate too high for us to hear. But it's possible to hear what you call social calls.
Social calls.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And it's not just bats that you work with, is it? It's also insects.
Yeah, I do all kinds of stuff really. I think most people who are into one area of natural history end up being into all of it really to some extent or another. So, but yeah, I do like my insects.
And so how long have you been working with bats and insects? How long has this been going on for?
Well, I started working with bats, with the bat group, with Brumbats in 2005, so 10 years I've been doing that. But I've been doing conservation since about late 90s, 96, something like that.
And so, I mean, at the moment, you're obviously looking for new volunteers to join Brumbats.
Yeah, we're always looking for new members and new volunteers. We're a very active group. We do loads of stuff, and we're always looking for people to help us to do surveys, take part in our new Bat Atlas project. Always looking for new bat carers. And in particular things like helping us to run stalls, because that's something that a lot of us, because we're so busy doing bat care or this or that, it's something that we're short of volunteers who are happy to do things like run stalls. And you don't need to be a bat genius, you just need to be enthusiastic about wildlife.
And talk us through the Bat Atlas project now. So how long has that been going on for?
Well, it's a 7-year project and we're in year 2. So we're just we had our pilot year and then we've tweaked our survey methods a little bit and we're going at it full throttle now, and we have another month of survey. We're basically asking people, and you don't need any experience to take part, we give you all the training that you need. We ask people to basically adopt a square of the map, of which Birmingham, the Black Country, has 202 of these squares. And you basically go and survey it twice through the year, so once in the first half of the summer and once in the last half of the summer. And we give you everything you need to do it.
And where are your squares?
I have one on the edge of Wolverhampton near Wiswick Manor, one in Great Bar, and the other one in Bilston where I live.
And so how many squares are there in total?
202.
202.
Yeah.
Wow, so it's quite a lot. And so far, what has the project told you about bats?
Well, we've recorded some new species at some new sites, but we won't really know the extent of it until we start doing the sound analysis, which is kind of a winter project. So we're out there at the moment doing all of our recording, and then we're getting all these sound files together, and then in the winter we start looking at them. That's another thing people can do. If they don't want to do surveys, they can learn to do sound analysis and help us to go through the records.
Exactly. And so do the number of bats vary in regional areas of the UK, or...?
Well, it varies according to how high up in the British Isles you are.
Okay.
So we have 18 species in the UK. You can find all of those in the very far south. Only about 10 here in the Midlands. And as you go up into Scotland, it drops to about 6. So it is the temperature, really, the temperature change that limits it. Obviously, you've got to have good habitat as well.
Exactly. And how many species are there altogether?
In the world, they reckon about 1,250, I think, is the current count.
Wow. And so, I mean, going back to previous question about, the stigma of bats and people being quite terrified, why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the media has a lot to do with it. I think that literature has a lot to do with it. Stuff like Dracula and the whole connotation that links with vampires and Halloween and that kind of stuff. But I mean, the truth of the matter is that they're not terrifying creatures at all. They're super sweet and they're kind of amazing. And if you get into bat care or bat conservation and you get to see that up close, then you'll be smitten. I promise. You should come and visit our bats.
That's good words over there. And so, roughly, on average, say in a year, how many bats have you actually saved?
Well, through the Bat Care Network, we get somewhere between 100 and 150 bats a year, but it's impossible to count the conservation that we do through, say, commenting on planning applications or roost visits where we save entire roosts of bats through working with homeowners to help protect bats that are maybe in their property, in their roost, in their loft.
And is it just the Bat Atlas project you're working on at the moment, or is there any other research that you're participating in?
Well, a lot of us go to because there's a Shropshire bat group and there's a Herefordshire mammal group, etc. So we do moonlight with other bat groups, helping with their projects as well, and they come over and help us as well. So it's Midland bat groups all tend to help each other. And
if potential volunteers out there, if they want to get involved, I mean, where can they go to find out more information?
The best thing to do is to go to our website, which is brumbats.org.uk, or you can just put Brumbats into Google, Brum like Birmingham bats. and on there there's a page about volunteering, and there's a little form, you fill it in, and then our secretary will send it to the right person, whether you want, and then you put whether you want to help with surveys or stalls or back care or whatever.